So this one we're kind of picking up in 2 Samuel 2:1. I went over a few of these verses in a stop, so I'm going to back up just so we can kind of go through them again. But before we did, I wanted to read something to you on 1 Samuel. And if you remember, Saul died. Remember that? Saul died. Somebody come reporting that he had ended him because he was severely wounded, and it was a lie. And of course, David took care of that because he's not going to have anything to do with that. But one of the things that's in this book, I don't know, did y'all ever get one of these? This is a really good book. And he's like a wordsmith. He can just put things in a way that's just amazing. But I wanted to read part of what he said. It says, Saul began his career standing. You remember? He was head and shoulders above the rest. But he closed his career falling. He said, therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12. He says, natural abilities and great opportunities do not guarantee success. That's what the world tells us, though, And he says Saul was head and shoulders above everybody else, but he was not heart and soul yielded to God. He was in his own strength, is what he could do. He didn't trust in the Lord. I said, ooh, that's good. I'm going to read that to y'all before we get started because we're coming into chapter 2. So in chapter 2, it happened after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to any of the cities of Judah? He's asking again. At this point in his life, every time before he does something, he's inquiring of God. And the Lord said to him, go up. And David says, where shall I go? And he specifically says to Hebron. Now that's it, that's significant. We don't pick up on that when we're just kind of reading through it. But there were two people who settled in Hebron. One was Abram. He specifically settled in Hebron when he came into the promised land. And in Joshua 14:13 through 14, Joshua gave Caleb Hebron. And you remember who Caleb was. He was one of the ones who was faithful. He was ready to take on that mountain. Even at 80 years old, he was ready to fight. So those are two of the notable people that we've learned about so far that settled in Hebron. And now David is told specifically where to go, Hebron. So David went up there, he and his two wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the widow of Nabal. And David brought up men who were with him, every man with his household, so they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. Then the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, the men of Jabesh Gilead were the ones who buried Saul. So David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead, and he said to them, you are blessed of the Lord, for you have shown kindness to your Lord, to Saul, and have buried him. This right here is one of those diplomatic moves, because these people were the ones loyal to Saul, not David. And even though he's king, he's praising them for something they did to what everybody else considers as David's enemy. Does that make sense, kind of what I'm saying? Most people wouldn't do that. If you're against me, I'm not going to reward you with anything for praising a man who tried to kill me 21 times. And it just shows, how David is, his spirit is. And now may the Lord show kindness and truth to you. I also will repay you this kindness because you have done this thing. Now therefore let your hands be strengthened and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead. And also the house of Judah has anointed me as king over them. But Abner, the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, southern pronunciation, y'all, and made him the king over Gilead, over the Ashurites, over Jezreel, over Ephraim, over Benjamin, and over all of Israel. So if you look at the land as to how it lays, Judah and the rest of Israel, he's still got a smaller portion, David does. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. Only the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Now Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met them by the pool of Gibeon. So they sat down, one on one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. Then Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men now arise and compete before us." And Joab said, "Let them arise." So they arose and they went over by number, 12 from Benjamin, followers of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 from the servants of David. So there's still like a division here, even though they kind of meet by this pool. And each one grasped his opponent by the head and thrust his sword in his opponent's side, so they fell down together. Therefore that place was called the Field of Sharp Swords, which is in Gibeon. So, like, I guess for their entertainment, they were going to watch their men fight each other, and everybody ends up dead. It's kind of a horrible entertainment. Like, I don't know who would volunteer for this. It kind of reminds me of gladiator games. Does anybody win? So there was a very fierce battle that day, and Abner and his men of Israel were beaten before the servants of David. Now the 3 sons of Zeruiah were there. Now the Zeruiah is David's sister. So these are David's nephews, who it's going to name here. Joab and Abishai. Y'all remember Abishai? My favorite person in the Old Testament, Abishai. And Asahel. And Asahel was as fleet of foot as a wild gazelle. So Asahel pursued Abner, and in going, he did not turn to the right hand or to the left from following Abner. Like, he's on him. He is straight on him. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Are you Asahel?" And he answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay hold of one of the young men, and take his armor for yourself." What he's trying to do is he's trying to get him off his tail. Hey, if you attack this one or you attack this one of the young men, you're better warrior than they are. You can have his armor. It's kind of like a bribe to get him off of his tail. But Asahel would not turn aside from following. So Abner said again to Asahel, "Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I face your brother Joab?" You don't want to go against Joab. He's just as bad as his brother Abishai when it comes to war. And these two are going to be set up over David's armies. They're going to be commander over David's armies. However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore, Abner struck him in the stomach with the blunt end of the spear, so that the spear came out of his back. It wasn't the sharp side, it was the blunt side. I've read this before like several times, but I don't think I ever picked up on that one word, blunt. I'm thinking he just run him through with a spear, but he hit him so hard the blunt side went through. So the spear came out of his back, and he fell down there and died on the spot. So it was that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab and Abishai also pursued Abner. And the sun was going down when they came to the hill of Ammah, which is before Giah by the road of the wilderness of Gibeon. Now the children of Benjamin gathered together behind Abner and became a unit. So they kind of closed ranks around him so nobody could get to him. And to remind you who Abner is Saul's cousin. So he would have, like a position in Israel just because he's Saul's kin, a close, kinsman as a cousin. It says, then Abner called to Joab. They come around him as a unit, and they took their stand on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it will be bitter in the latter end? How long will it be then until you... I don't even know what that says because I cut it off. Tell the people to return from pursuing... I don't even know what I did here. I'm sorry, y'all. Now look. Morning.
Morning. I was sitting in the old Sunday school class. I
Yeah.
thought I sat in there a while.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that anybody was back there. Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it will be bitter in the latter end? How long will it be then until you tell your people to return from pursuing their brethren? That's easy to say when you're on top of a mountain and you're not wanting people to pursue you. They've already been defeated. It says they've been defeated. They've already killed Joab and Abishai's brother. How do you think they're going to respond? It's not going to be good. And I'm giving you this story. They cut it out in our usual outline, but you have to have this story to get the next story. So that's why we're going over this part. There's a reason Abner's doing this. Abner, he's one of these people, he doesn't go by God's word. He goes by his own strength. And he's used to making these political moves to kind of get more power. He's the one that puts Ishbosheth on the throne. If he advances this one as the king over Israel, he's got his ear. You know, he's kind of like a puppeteer, a little whisper that he can get things done behind the scenes. That's how he's used to doing things. So Joab says, as God lives, unless you had spoken, surely then by morning all the people would have given up pursuing their brethren. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still and did not pursue Israel anymore, nor did they fight anymore. Then Abner and his men went on all that night through the plain, crossed over the Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. Now here's the thing, they didn't stop. They didn't stop and make camp even after battle. Even after losses, they didn't turn back. There's a reason. Because if they stopped, who do you think would probably come upon them in the night? The enemy. So it was strategic to keep going, but it also shows their fear of Judah and of Joab and Abishai. So Joab returned from pursuing Abner, and when he gathered all the people together, they were missing of David's servant 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had struck down of Benjamin and Abner's men 360 men who died. That's a big difference. 19 and 360. In a war, losses count, especially if you have a smaller nation. I guess I would put it that way. You don't want to lose your men. Then they took up Asahel and buried him in his father's tomb, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at daybreak. Now it kind of skips right here a little bit, and it kind of goes back into David's family. The sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Jezreelitess. His second, Chileab by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. The third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. The fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And the sixth, Ithream, by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David in Hebron. Now, here's the thing. Although David's many wives are mentioned, it's never condoned. And I want to make that clear. I think it's in, if memory serves me correct, like Deuteronomy 17:17, it specifically states not to have multiple wives. So this right here, it is mentioned because we know that this is happening, but it's never condoned in Scripture. And I want to make that clear. And I say that because probably over the last 2 years, I have heard this as an argument for people to have multiple wives or multiple husbands. That's a new, I don't want to say a new thing, but it's kind of like a new thing to us in the South. We're not used to that, but I've heard it even in this area, that people are trying to push for that. They use scripture to try to justify it, and I want to make clear that it doesn't justify it. Just because it tells us what happened, it doesn't mean that God condones it. In fact, he does not at all. So I wanted to give you this. This is David's family tree. And I know it's really small. I'm going to try to zoom in. Jesse. And you have David. We're not going to look at all his brothers, but I wanted to point out Zariah because that's his sister. And you have Abishai, Joab, and Ashael. So if you move up, sorry, this doesn't move like I want it to. You're going to see how many wives he had, how many children he has. And some of them you're going to read about later on. It's good if you're reading through scripture, if you can pull this like up on your phone, that way you can keep track of it, because even I can't keep track of it. I recognize certain names for doing certain things, but I can't tell you whose mother they had or anything like that. So Absalom, you're going to hear him. Tamar, you're going to hear about her. Of course, Solomon, that's one of the main ones in here. Some of the other ones you don't hear as much about. And let me keep going. If you look here, you're going to see Solomon. And of course, that's by Bathsheba. And this is where you're going to get into the divided kingdom, like Rehoboam and all of that. But even I can't keep up with it. And if you see right here, like 10 concubines and everything, that's a lot to keep up with. I don't know how in the world he remembered birthdays. I'm just saying, or anniversaries, or
I'm sure.
And I think this is confusing. If you had more than one husband or wife, there would be contention, not just confusion.
You only deal with one wife.
One's enough.
One is enough.
But there's been a television show, reality thing, about a guy who had 2 wives. I think it was just 2, but there was dissension there as well.
Yeah.
And you see that back with Hannah and Peninnah as well in the Old Testament. So
Right? And you're going to have that, because that's not what God intended. That's not a healthy relationship. So y'all know at least where Zariah and Joab and Abishai come in there. And you see all of the wives and all of the children that he's having. Now it was so, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner was strengthening his hold on the house of Saul. Now this is not something that is spiritual. This is not something that's prayed about. He's not following God's will. This is his political moves on his own. And Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Ahiah. So Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" Now it never says that he did. He's just accusing him of it here. Then Abner became very angry at the words of Ishbosheth and said, "Am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah?" He's taken offense to the accusation, is what this is. "Today I show loyalty to the house of Saul, your father, to his brothers, and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hand of David, and you charge me today with a fault concerning this woman." This right here is saying, hey, I had the power to deliver you to David. That shows, his power at the time. He's pulling strings behind, the king here. Well, hey, I got you to the throne. I could have delivered you to David. I could have done this. That's what he's saying. I've been loyal to you, to your father's house. And so he says, "May God do so to Abner and more if I do not do for David as the Lord has sworn to him." This also shows that he knew that the Lord wanted David on the throne. And yet he's been working against it because he put Ishbosheth, Saul's son, on the throne. to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan to Beersheba. So what he's saying here is he's telling Ishbosheth, just because you accused me of this, I'm changing allegiances. I'm not going to be, faithful to the house of Saul anymore. I'm jumping ship and I'm going to David. And he could not answer Abner another word because he feared him. Does it say he feared the Lord? What the Lord wanted? He feared Abner because Abner had so much power at this time. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to David, saying, "Who is in the land?" Saying also, "Make your covenant with me, and indeed my hand shall be with you to bring all Israel to you." He's trying to make a deal. Hey, let's make a deal between ourselves, and you can have all of Israel. And David said, "Good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you, you shall not see my face until you bring," I'm going to say Michal. I don't like saying Michael. I don't know how it's pronounced. But this is Saul's daughter. All right, do y'all remember, this was David's first wife. She loved him. She hid him when Saul came to kill him. She was taken and given to another man. And David hasn't seen her since then. And he says, "When you come and see my face." So David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, "Give me my wife, Michal." So he still considered her his wife. And then he says what he did to earn her. If you remember, Saul gave him an impossible task to complete to earn the right to marry his daughter. So he brings that up. Who I betrothed to myself for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, so she's already got another husband, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. Then her husband went along with her to Bahurim, weeping behind her. So Abner said to him, "Go, return," and he returned. This is playing out like a movie in my head. I don't know if y'all read, if y'all picture it, but I can just see this poor man. I mean, he's just weeping. He's losing his wife. He probably thinks, she's been his for a while now. I mean, David's got all these other wives. I mean, what's the chances of her going back to him? And now this guy's literally following her like a lost little puppy, crying. I kind of feel bad for him. Now Abner had communicated with the elders of Israel, saying, "In time past you were seeking for David to be king over you. Now then do it." Does he bring God into this? He said, "You," talking to the elders of Israel, "you wanted David as king, now do it." Now he says, "For the Lord has spoken of David, saying," so it does again say that he remembers that this is God's plan. "By the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and the hand of all their enemies." He doesn't present this like, God wants David to be king. He presents it in the fact of war, because they're going out for battle like all the time. God says he's going to use David to go against and save the people from the Philistines and all of our enemies. The only chance we have at peace is if David is going to be king. So Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin. Then Abner also went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron, and all seemed good to Israel and the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron, and David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. Now again, this is like something diplomatic. I'm sure he probably did not care for Abner, but he knew the power that Abner held. Then Abner said to David, "I will arise and go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all your heart's desires." So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. At that moment, the servants of David and Joab came from a raid and brought much spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the troops that were with him came had come and told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king, and he sent him away. He is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, what have you done? Now, you know he's remembering, this is the guy who killed my brother. Why are you making deals with him? Think of it on a human level. Would we all not kind of think that way? He says, look, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away and he's already gone? Surely you realize that Abner the son of Ner came to deceive you, to know you're going out and you're coming in, and to know all that you are doing. Now, he's thinking of this from a warrior's perspective. What better way to go now, get out or whatever, where the king is? You can visit. Diplomat. You can visit. You can scope out everything. So that's the way that Joab's looking at this. He doesn't trust him. And when Joab had gone from David's presence, he sent messengers after Abner, who brought him back to the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. Ooh, sneaky Joab here. Hey, Abner, come on back. David's got something else for you. It would be easy for him to just turn around and come right back. Now, when Abner had returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him privately, and there stabbed him in the stomach, so he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. This also shows a difference between David and Joab. Even though Joab is this mighty warrior, commander of the army at this time, he's not letting the Lord fight his battles. David does. David does. He's always inquiring. He lets people take vengeance in the Lord's name, right? Because that's already happened. You remember with the Philistine guy who came and brought false report. Well, I took out Saul. He was already dying, so I took him out. Well, here's his bracelet and his crown. I did this for you. That kind of thing. He doesn't like that. He wants the Lord only to fight his battles. Afterwards, when David heard it, he said, my kingdom and I are guiltless before the Lord. David didn't know it. He didn't command this. Joab took this upon himself. It says, guiltless before the Lord forever of the blood of Abner, the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let there never fail to be in the house of Joab one who has a discharge, or is a leper, who leans on a staff, or falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. This is kind of akin to a curse, if you read that. You know what? If you're going to take innocent blood, then somebody in your house, they're always going to have this, or this. So Joab and Abishai, his brother, killed Abner. Now, when we just read it, it said that Joab did it. But here it says Joab and Abishai, his brother, killed Abner. At this time, lots of times when Joab would go out, Abishai was with him. So it's likely that even if Abishai did not do the deed, he was an accomplice in it just because he agreed with it. This was their brother, in other words, because he had killed their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. Then David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, tear your clothes, gird yourselves with sackcloth, and mourn Abner. And the king followed the coffin. So this is something else that's diplomatic, if you would say, because Abner had so much power in the rest of Israel. If David did not do this, he would look like he was an accomplice in it. If he did not mourn for this man, if he sit here and celebrated his enemy, is he ever going to get to rule the rest of Israel? He's not going to be trusted. So there had to be a division between what Joab had done and how David responds to this murder. So they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all of the people wept with him. And the king sang lament over Abner and said, "Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put into fetters. As a man falls before the wicked, so you fell." Then all the people wept over him again. And when all the people came to persuade David to eat food while it was still day, David took an oath, saying, "God do so to me and more also, if I taste bread or anything else till the sun goes down." Now all the people took note of it, and it pleased them, since whatever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people and all Israel understood that day it had not been the king's intent to kill Abner the son of Ner. If David had not responded in this way, he would have been to blame in the people's eyes, even though he didn't do it. So his decisions that he's making is building a reputation for himself. And it's much needed here because he's just the ruler over Judah. For him to be the ruler over all of Israel, they're going to have to trust him. It says, then the king said to his servants, "Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? I am weak today, though anointed as king." You get what he says there? Even though I'm king, today I'm just not feeling it. I'm weak today. He can have all the power in the world, but at the end of the day, he's just a man. He has weaknesses just like everyone else. He says, "And these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too harsh for me." They are harsh. You might not see it yet. You will see it in the accounts to come. They are harsh. "The Lord shall repay the evildoer according to his wickedness." Now we go into chapter 4. So it says, "When Saul's son heard that Abner had died in Hebron, he lost heart, and all of Israel was troubled." Because Abner pulled so many strings, he had so much power, he's going to be afraid for his throne. Now Saul's son had 2 men who were captains of his troops. So this is in-house. This is not David's men. This is in Saul's house. This is people under Ishbosheth the king. The name of one was Baanah, and the name of the other was Rechab, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite. These are horrible names. And the children of Benjamin, for Beeroth was part of Benjamin. Good grief. Because the Beerothites fled to Gittaim, they have been sojourners there unto this day. So Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was lame in his feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came to Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it happened as she made haste to flee that he fell and he became lame. His name was Mephibosheth. Now it gives us this little nugget, and then it doesn't say anything else about him. But I'm bringing it up here because there's more to say about Mephibosheth. We're going to get there a little bit later, but you're going to get the introduction here, and I'm going to bring this back up. So we're going to go back to this verse when we learn more about Mephibosheth. Then the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah, set out and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who was lying on his bed at noon. It must be nice to be the king. He's taking a nap at noon in the middle of the day. Like, do you not have a kingdom to run? But he's napping. And they come there all the way into the house as to go get wheat. So they come in for this reason. And when they come in through to get wheat, and they stabbed him in the stomach. So Ishbosheth, the king of Israel, is stabbed in his bed at noon in the middle of the day. Now, this is by his own men. This is by his own captains. It's not from David's camp. Then Rechab and Baanah, his brother, escaped. For when they came into the house, he was lying on his bed in his bedroom. Then they struck him and killed him, beheaded him, and took his head, and were all night escaping through the plain. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron. And they said to the king, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy." Now, what did David do to the first guy who did this? He killed him. You dare touch the Lord's anointed. He didn't want other people to fight his battles for him. He wanted the Lord to. And these people, they're going to make it about the Lord. Now listen to this. "Who sought your life, and the Lord has avenged my Lord, the king, this day of Saul and his descendants." Did the Lord have anything to do with it? Now I'm going to time out right here. How many times in history has there been a battle, a war in the Lord's name, and it not be of the Lord? Many times in history. There's been genocide in the Lord's name, and it's not been the Lord's will. You hear that over and over. "Well, I did this in the Lord's honor, or in the Lord's name, and da 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 da." Can the Lord not fight his own battles? He can bring hail down from heaven if he wants to. We saw that back in Joshua, where hail killed more than the people of the sword. Before every battle, before any enemy, up to this point, David inquires of the Lord, "Shall I go up? Shall I fight? Shall I do this?" This is how he does it. And then all of a sudden, these men, they just are rash. They do this and they think they're going to get a reward. "Well, the Lord has avenged you today." Nope. You did. It's on you. But David answered Rechab and Baanah, his brother, the sons of Rimmon, this is such a hard word for me, Beorthite, and said to them, "As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life from all this adversity. When someone told me, saying, 'Look, Saul is dead,' thinking I have brought good news, I arrested him and had him executed at Ziklag, the one who thought I would give him a reward for his news." He's reminding him, he doesn't want people to go out here and be a vigilante in his name or in the Lord's name. How much more when wicked men have killed a righteous person in his own house on his bed? This wasn't like a battle. They snuck in like little ninjas in the night and beheaded him. "Therefore shall I not require his blood at your hand and remove you from the earth?" So David commanded his young men, and they executed them, cut off their hands and feet, and hanged them by the pool in Hebron. This is a message. This is a message. He didn't want anybody else to do this. So this was the message. Hands and feet are gone. That's something that they did in the ancient world. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and they buried it in the tomb of Abner in Hebron. I'm going to stop right there for today. I know I'm running out of time. Any questions?
No, I know in the battle, Saul's sons all died with Jonathan, and why was Ishbosheth not there also?